When you guys take action, you are literally putting out to the universe, believe this, I am going to master, I am going to control, and I am going to create my own destiny, and I am not going to sit back and let fear rule my life. Welcome to the Pave Your Paradise podcast. I'm Mandy Ross, international media personality, speaker, writer, life cheerleader, and coach. Each episode, I'll share a guest or an idea to help you blast through your limiting beliefs, nourish your soul, and connect with yourself to take your relationships, health, business, and life to a next level. We don't play small. We're meant for great things. We take our struggles and turn them into slam dunk successes. This is the place for you to create your best you so you can pave your personal path to paradise. Are you with me? Let's do this. Hello. Oh man, that was a horrible attempt at a British accent. I apologize already for that one. Well, howdy ho, neighbors. Okay, I'm clearly in a silly mood today. Welcome back to the show, guys. I really believe laughter is medicine for the soul, so I hope that I just put a little smile on your face. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all of your podcast support. If you guys are just tuning in for the first time, you are tuning in to Pave Your Paradise podcast with me, Mandy. And I just want to say a huge shout out to all of you who continue to send me your reviews. And I am seeing all of your subscriptions, your shares, and your podcast love on social media. It means the absolute world to me. And you guys know that I love empowering y'all to create your dream lives. You guys rock. I feel so honored right now for you to be spending your time with me. And I want to know and see how you're tuning in today. I'd love to hear where, when, and how you like to listen to PYP podcast. So send me a snapshot on social media and tag me, Mandy J. Ross, and tag Pave Your Paradise podcast. And P.S. if you're not already following that account, please do. I love to share tips and tidbits and even more goodness on how to pave your path to paradise online on that account. So without further ado, now for today's episode. So let's dive right in, guys. Are you ready? Woo! Let's do this. Today's episode is all about something that I have struggled with, I have been challenged by, and I have overcome many times in my life, which is all about living fearlessly and in particular, how to turn your fear into fuel so you can take action. And it doesn't have to be massive action, but just by taking action, you can accomplish your dreams. This is so important in order to creating paradise within. And you guys know I live for anything to do with creating inner happiness and helping you guys achieve that. See, when we live in fear, we're literally blocking goodness and growth from ourselves and our lives. And I know y'all want positive and progressive lives and vibes out there. Am I right? And ain't nobody got time for stagnancy. You all want to expand, and I understand and I get that because I feel the same way. So today I am sharing my biggest and best and brightest tips on how to squash your fears and actually turn it into something useful so that you can then take action. It's story time. All right, so this episode was inspired by a story that I'm going to share, actually a few with you today, on my own experiences with living fearlessly and overcoming major, scary, afraid, fear-based thinking. And this episode was really inspired by recent travels that I took. So here's the deal. With my birthday having just happened, when it was coming up, I was trying to figure out the best way to celebrate. And birthdays have always been a really special time for me growing up, as my family made each one a big occasion and celebration. Because of that, I look forward to the day. I know some people have different feelings around their birthdays, but I actually really look forward forward to mine. I like to look at it as an opportunity to reflect on what I've accomplished in the past year and to focus on what I'd love to achieve in my new birth year. And to celebrate another year of life on this beautiful planet, I always like to plan something unique. It doesn't have to be huge, and I like to be something special to just celebrate that particular year. So this year, I set an intention of what I envisioned doing on my birthday, and the plans happened to come together pretty effortlessly, I will say. I was excited to be celebrating in the best way that I could imagine, by going to Burning Man. I know, it's a little out there. I wanted to do that because it always happens to fall around my birthday, and I also planned an epic road trip adventure to explore some new places and doing what I love. And on September 6th, I was exactly where I needed to be. So the reason why I'm sharing this story is because this trip would not have happened if I had allowed fear and logistics to get in my way. For all of the reasons why I wanted to take it, there were reasons why I shouldn't or couldn't in my mind. When these thoughts popped into my head, my reason for rejecting them was always the same. I didn't want to live a life fueled by excuses, aka fear. I want to live a life with no regrets. My mindset has changed over time from having to ask myself why to each opportunity that comes my way to why not? Like, why shouldn't I do this? Why wouldn't I do this? Why couldn't I do this? I wasn't always so flexible in my decision making, and it really led me to feeling as though I wasn't living life fully. Through the years, I've learned that taking risks is the only way I'll accomplish my goal of living life to the max. I want to accomplish as much as I can on this planet while I'm still alive, and to live with no what ifs. Something my mom told me a long time ago, which has always stuck with me, was it's not about what ifs, it's about what is. And to really be present in the moment. That's something that I've really been trying to embrace. Fear is just something that we really just make up, and it basically is stagnant energy in the body. So by identifying it in the present moment and dealing with it, we can then overcome it. And I'm going to be sharing more about that with you guys a little bit later on in the episode. I've put together a list of 3 ways that you can start living fearlessly today. I know, that's pretty amazing. But for reals, first, I'm going to share with you some personal stories of fear to success because I have plenty to draw from, and perhaps you can relate to them. I always find hearing other people's stories to be beneficial for myself in order to learn from their different journeys, their different processes, and their different tragedy to triumph stories. I find that really inspiring myself, so hopefully you can take away the same from me sharing my stories with you guys today. All right. Now for confession time. In the last few years of my life, each and every year, I have decided that I would take up something that scares me bleepless and that I am absolutely not a master, if at all, have ever tried in my life, because I really want to get comfortable with leaning into my fears. 2 years ago, I took up snowboarding, and I'm gonna just tell you, my butt got way more action, especially my first season, than any other part of my body. And last year, I decided to take up rollerblading, and I'd done it, I think, once or twice as a kid. And then this year, something that will actually maybe shock some of you is that putting out this podcast, as far as public speaking is concerned, not fearful at all of that, but actually putting myself and my vulnerable side out there through a podcast, that scared me bleepless. This is this year's fearless journey. So you guys are literally listening to one of my big fears right now. This podcast itself is one of my living fearlessly accomplishments. Going back to the rollerblading, I think that's a really good example to use because as someone who's really curious by nature and I always want to experience everything in life, well, almost everything at least once. I made a commitment to myself, as I said years ago, that no matter how scared or intimidated or embarrassing something made me feel, I would at least give it one shot. Last year I bought all the gear, strapped on my new blades for the first go at it, and set off only to discover that it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. In those moments of frustration, and yes, at times, absolute fear, just saying, my body was in no need of some extra cement love. Thank you you and no thank you. It dawned on me that as children, we're so quick to jump into new things, being open and living with a fearless attitude that's required to learn and for the growth that is so necessary for our souls to happen. As kids, we don't let what scares us paralyze us from exploring. We let ourselves live freely and curiously, which is a mindset that leads to a world of discovery and new possibilities. And that, guys, can happen at any age. Light bulb. As adults, when we stop learning, we stop the growth process, and ultimately, we stop living life fully as we're meant to. It is our birthright to expand, to grow, to progress, and to become the highest versions of ourselves. The irony is that we're so often letting fear of failing overpower our desire to try new things, and in doing so, we actually experience the biggest failure of all. When we decide to swallow our pride and make peace with usually sucking big time at something that will more than likely take time and energy to master, the learning journey is a whole lot more enjoyable, and dare I say it, fun. Let's just say many laughs were had during my first go at blading, and it wasn't just me laughing at myself. It will take consistency, compassion, and let's be real, major commitment. My 3 favorite C's: consistency, compassion, and commitment. Not to give up or let feelings of fear or frustration stop me. But guys, I can honestly say that I'm in the process of becoming a great blader in my adulthood. Blood, sweat, and tears, I am determined to master rollerblading. I want to share that example with you just so you can get a real life sense and example of something that I've overcome and just kind of something simple to grasp, because these opportunities for getting through and breaking through our fear happen all the time. And it can be something as simple as taking up a new sport. It can be something as simple as saying hi to someone new. There's so many different ways that you can start flexing your fearless muscle. One saying that I really believe in, and something that's become a lifelong mantra for me, is that life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Comfort can be a marvelous thing. It can be beautiful in the form of a soothing cup of tea. It can be your usual routine, or it can be a squeeze or hug from an old friend. Like most things in life, however, it can also work against you. The trouble lies in when you become so comfortable in your current way of living that you no longer wish or seek to push past your limitations and are merely existing in a constant state of stagnancy. Blech. Just makes me want to barf just thinking about staying stagnant. It's only when you really challenge yourself that you can progress profoundly. The bigger the push, the bigger the reward. As the saying also goes, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. I used to crave the known because I felt so comfortable and instantly satisfied with the familiar. I was living well, but I really felt like something was still lacking in my life. So I made it a mission to live fearlessly, from making small decisions daily to taking huge risks both personally and professionally. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, because I just want to stay completely transparent with you and on this podcast at all times. It has not at times been without resistance or easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and just say that it's been a wonderful journey of being fearless and everything's just worked out perfectly. That's not at all how it's gone. However, looking back, I can also honestly say that I have no regrets. I don't just dip my toe into the well of the unknown now. I just jump right into that body of water. I try not to allow my limiting beliefs to stop me, and because of my approach, I'm able to live life more freely, fully, and fearlessly. I really want you guys to get those 3 words into your head, because I just saying them sounds so good and it feels so good. Maybe that can be a mantra for your next meditation. Maybe that can be an affirmation. I am living life more freely, fully, and fearlessly. I love alliteration, and that one sounds deep and delicious to me. The only limitations you have are the ones that you guys create. You know this. They're the ones that I create too in my head. When you change your thoughts, you can change your life. By pushing yourself daily, you'll continuously move closer to accomplishing your goals, and your dreams can and truly will become your reality. And I really believe this, guys, because it's happened in my own life. Now, of course, this episode would not be complete without me diving into the power of your mind, because I really do believe that to a certain degree, we create fear in our heads. It starts with our thoughts. I really, truly love this phrase, and I'm a firm believer in that where your mind goes, your energy flows. So picture this, guys. So picture you have this fuel that you're holding on to. Now, you can either feed your fear or you can feed your fearless
fearlessness and your fearless muscle. It's always your choice. You have one or the other. You can't feed both. So if you're going to use your fuel, I'm going to highly suggest you feed your fearlessness and you build that fearless muscle with that fuel. I want to touch on also why we are so afraid. Why are we so afraid? It's such a good question to ask and to contemplate, because when you can identify where the source of your fear is coming from, it's that much easier to get over it. So why are we afraid? Why do we get so scared of things when they come up? Usually it stems from a fear of pain and getting hurt. So this could be something that by human nature, when we've been hurt in our lives or we've experienced some sort of trauma, that can be a trigger for us. If another situation that comes up seems similar to us and we automatically take our mind back to that first imprint of impact, then it's very easy to start feeling that fear-based mentality right away and feeling that fear-based energy right away. As human nature, our brains are wired to survive. And so when we feel threatened, we go into that flight or fight mode. That's really where the fear usually stems from. It's really just trapped trauma, if this is from a past experience, that has not been released from our body. So our mind automatically goes, okay, perfect example. If you were a kid and you touched the stove and it was on and you burned yourself, maybe every time there's fire around, you get this anxiety or this anxiousness starting, and you're so scared that you might get burned again. Another perfect example we can take in the relationship realm and the emotional body of our lives is literally getting burned, quote unquote, by someone who we care about. And that stems from maybe you were vulnerable at one point in your life and someone mistreated you or someone abused you or someone basically didn't react in a way that you were expecting and you felt let down. So you felt like you literally were burned by them emotionally. And so now when someone starts displaying the same things, if you haven't healed that and you haven't overcome whatever that situation was, that's trauma that's trapped in your body. Your mind is going to go back to that flight mode where you just want to take off, you want to run, you want to shut yourself off, you want to just leave the situation because your body is going, this is bad for me. Red flag, I can't survive this. I didn't last time, so I can't deal with it. What's the best thing to do when you feel fear? Because I really want to give you the nitty-gritty of what's helped me and how I've overcome these situations. You have to lean into it and you have to take action. Now, this is so much easier said than done, and I'm going to be very, very crystal clear in my communication about that with you. When things happen to you from your past and you've been hurt or you have pain, or there is one other usual scenario of why do we feel afraid? It's because of the unknown. We actually haven't experienced something before, so we are trying to even fathom what that might be like and change, and something new and unfamiliar can also be very scary to us as humans. Here's what I'm going to tell you guys first and foremost. The best way to do this, as I said, is to lean into the fear. Think of it like you're an investigator and you need to find out, where is this fear coming from? One of the best ways I have found to do this is to just take a deep breath, really be present, and really feel yourself in that moment. Feel the anxiety start to creep up. Feel the fear really come into your body. Sometimes it'll be more based in your mind. A lot of times it'll actually be around your solar plexus, kind of just above your belly button area, because literally when we feel things, it can be gut-wrenching, you know, that gut reaction. So a lot of times for people, it'll be based around that solar plexus, that chakra area. Here's what I can tell you. When you start to learn to identify where the fear is based in your body, it's a lot easier to release it. You also want to explore, as this quote unquote investigator, where is this stemming from? Like, really dive deep into it. Maybe you want to take out a piece of paper and a pen and you just want to write out, why am I fearful of this? And write out all the different things that are going through your mind. Maybe you're scared because something did happen to you in your past that's similar. Maybe you're afraid of getting hurt and the pain is really weighing on on you from something that happened. Or maybe you're really afraid of not knowing and not being able to control a future outcome based on what you're experiencing right now. It's really important to explore and identify it rather than taking that flight, because if you don't identify it and you don't deal with it now, honestly, guys, the same pattern is going to keep presenting itself to you over and over and over again. If we don't deal with and heal things that are happening to us over the course of our lives, they will always come back as a lesson over and over and over and over again until you truly learn what that lesson is meant for you in your life. Being that taking action is the next step, taking action can mean so many things, and it just really depends on what scenario you're dealing with. If it's something where maybe you're getting to know someone and they've done something and you're really afraid of, say, being vulnerable with them, my best advice is always to start with baby steps. Maybe you reveal something small to them, or maybe you do something that allows them to show you in a small way that they can have your trust. It's these little baby steps. It doesn't always have to mean taking massive action. I think we get so stuck on having this pressure on us to do these big things, but most progression in life actually happens by small, consistent actions, not these huge leaps. Sometimes they do, by all means, for sure, but a lot of times the people who are the most successful are the ones that take baby steps. So this also applies to getting over your fears. People who have major phobias, it's amazing when I've seen documentaries on this where, say, someone has a fear of a certain type of animal. So maybe rather than scaring the living bejeebus out of them by bringing this animal into their contact and having them touch it, and oh my gosh. You know what? I'll use a perfect example. My grandma on my mom's side, call her Mama Nahid, she has a massive fear of snakes, like to the point where she, when I was little, couldn't even see a snake on TV without freaking out and having to leave the room. It was completely a fight or flight, and in her case, flight response. I think my mom had told me years later, because I was very curious about where this phobia started, it had to do with my grandmother having seen snakes or something to do with her being younger, and there were snakes in person being involved, and she just got really freaked out. So ever since, she hadn't dealt with her fear of snakes. I'll never forget, especially this one time, there was a snake on TV, and she literally freaked out in the living room, and like not just had to leave, like she had to leave and calm herself down. And, you know, as a kid, obviously I felt horrible because I was watching my grandmother deal with this. Now, as an adult and someone who's studied fear and has lived through and overcome many fear-based challenges, I will say that sometimes the best thing to do, as I said, start small. In the case of, say, a snake phobia, what my grandma could do, Mama Nahin, she could slowly expose herself to images, say, of snakes. So maybe that's seeing a picture online and just familiarizing herself, and maybe every once in a while she starts with seeing an image or a photo of a snake. Maybe that could progress to, say, maybe watching a YouTube with some snakes in it, and just really getting comfortable with seeing them move, seeing how they slither around, and just allowing herself to get comfortable, obviously with breathing techniques, and really just allowing herself to flow through the process of calming herself down, self-soothing, and getting comfortable with that. Maybe the next step would be maybe she goes to, say, a pet store or somewhere that has caged snakes, and that could allow her to actually be present with one while still knowing there's a safety net of a cage between her and the snake. And then finally, maybe that could progress one day to her actually seeing a snake in person. Maybe there's no cage involved. Maybe even, and this is like really going out there, but it's totally possible because I've seen it done, to her even petting one, or maybe putting one on her body or something. And I know you're thinking of like my little grandma with the snake wrapped around her, but really, I mean, this is a really great example of how you can progress through your stages of fear so that you don't have to go full throttle with going from being absolutely terrified to something and then jumping deep dive right into it right away. You can have progression steps. So maybe if you are really struggling with something right now, something's really freaking you out, something is really bringing up these limiting beliefs, these fears within you, then you can write out an action plan, basically a fear-based based action plan to be able to work your way up to completely squashing and getting over that fear. So another element that I always find is a nice little stepsister to fear is perfectionism. A lot of times perfectionism is what stops us from taking action. It goes back to that mindset of, well, if I can't do it as good as this, then why bother even starting? And unfortunately, I'm going to tell you guys this straight up. Perfectionism is a serial killer. Boom. I said it. It will literally plague you from taking action. Here's the deal. If you can identify your fear and use the power of your mind to break through rather than breaking down and never doing anything, you gotta let that bleep go. You just gotta let it go. Because when you do, you're gonna get more and more comfortable with taking risks in your life. And as I said, fearlessness is like a muscle. It's like a fearless muscle that you continue to build on. You start small, you start taking baby steps, and each time you overcome a fear that once freaked you out, you actually build on your confidence, which is a huge component in overcoming future fears as well. And guys, perfect isn't real. I'm going to say that to you so much on this podcast because I am a recovering perfectionist. Progress is real. Progress is a very possible, beautiful, and real thing. Perfectionism is not. In order for us to progress, you need to take action. One thing that I have learned over the course of my life, and this is so simple yet so profound, action is the antidote to anxiety. I'm gonna say that again because I think it's so important to ingrain that into your absolute soul and being. Action is the antidote to anxiety. When you guys take action, you are literally putting out to the universe, believe this, I am going to master, I am going to control, and I am going to create my own destiny, and I am not going to sit back and let fear rule my life. A beautiful quote that I really want to share with you guys, I believe it was Marie Forleo, love you Marie, who said this: a fall isn't final unless you stay on the ground. That is pure soul nourishment, word porn for your soul. I love this quote because it is such a beautiful metaphor for living fearlessly. The only way that you can make that final is if you never get back up. And fear is something that we all deal with. Failure is not something that we ever have to deal with, guys. And failure isn't possible as long as you keep trying and you're learning from all that you do. When you pick yourself back up and you keep moving ahead, success is inevitable in your future. Get over that feeling because freedom and freeing yourself from those internal chains of fear that are keeping you stuck and stagnant are the keys to your success. Freedom is within your reach, but it doesn't ever stem from fear-based thinking. You gotta let that bleep go. And y'all know what I'm talking about. You just gotta let it go like One of the philosophies that I adore is that you can only learn how to fly when you're willing to risk a fall. And I know I'm talking a lot about falling today as metaphors, but it's a beautiful example of just picking yourself back up, because part of fear, and going back to why are we so afraid, it's a lot of times because we're feeling failure and we're fearing failure. And guys, failure is not fatal. It's not final. It's not the end unless we choose it to be. Now, a perfect example of this is something that I tried last year, which was a Pilates flip on a specific machine that is in the Pilates world called a Cadillac. It reminds me of a trapeze because it's got like the swaying bar and it's attached to bars at the top. I was just nervous watching the instructor do it the first time. I'm gonna tell you guys, I was definitely a bit nervous myself when I tried it, and I really had to get over the fear of going upside down on my own. If I'm going on a roller coaster, I bleeping love that because it's such a rush for me. I love anything that's risk-taking like that. It's thrilling. It's such a fun ride. But for some reason, I have this weird fear of going upside down on my own. And it's funny, like if I'm on the ground, it's usually if it's in the air. If I'm on the ground and I'm doing somersaults, no problem. I don't mind going upside down. If I'm doing a headstand no problem. But as soon as I have to like go in the middle of nowhere and have nothing around me and I have to go upside down, for some reason, I literally have like this bout of anxiety that comes onto me. For me to do this flip, she wanted me to do a flip on this Cadillac. My mind was literally hesitating. My heart literally started pounding when she's like, yeah, your turn. I'm like, what? Like, we're doing it now? I mean, I need more time to prepare. And it was like that perfectionist mindset started kicking in as well. So it's like that beautiful marriage of perfectionism and wanting to procrastinate and stall the process so I could just, take some more time to like breathe myself through it. But honestly, I just knew that I had to try it in order to get over this fear. I did what I like to do sometimes in these situations. And even though my heart was racing, when I was turning myself over in an instant, I literally just said to myself in my mind, I am letting go of my fear. I literally fully gave into that fear. I trusted myself. I just went with it. And what do you know? I actually did it. And what a rush of joy and excitement when I landed. It literally took me back to my childhood of trying and experiencing all sorts of new sensations. Children are such beautiful teachers because they have this wonderful ability to try and fall over and over until they do what they set out to do. That level of determination and fearlessness is something to admire and respect. I really want to aspire to be that way in all areas of my life. It's so common over time to develop a limiting belief of what you can't do, which is always fear-based. There have been times when I've allowed it to stop me for sure, but through the years, as I said, I've realized that fear is usually just a byproduct of not feeling in control in my case. And here's the thing, it usually arises unexpectedly, so you're totally thrown off your guard and you go into an automatic default of safety and survival. So another tidbit for you guys, now when I feel that old familiar feeling of anxiety coming on, I logically assess if there's really anything to be cautious of or if I'm just resorting back to my old way of thinking. I've learned to completely shift my fear into fuel and motivation to do anything, even if it scares me in the you-know-what. And here's the thing, guys, you can do this too. Next time you come into a situation that has you feeling afraid, stop and actually think through the worst case scenario and the realistic probability of it actually happening to you. With clarity comes comfort of the once unknown. More than likely, you'll conclude that you need not fear whatever it is you are fearing. Rather, you must trust that you are in control, believe in yourself and your abilities, and proceed confidently to achieve the success that you are wanting in your life. And of course, I always love the saying, what if I fall? Oh, but darling, what if you fly? And I really believe we are all born to fly, to take flight and to spread our wings. You guys are like, Mandy, okay, it's getting really creative woo-woo here. But really, think of that metaphor. You were born to fly. You were not put on this planet to crawl. You were born to spread those beautiful wings and get out there, jump off those cliffs, and to soar. You were born to soar, guys, and I will be the one who will always preach this to you because I believe that we are all born to soar and that you are capable. Some more food for thought. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to your courage. That's why it's so important to live fearlessly. A wonderful example this year for me was seeing Komodo dragons in person. Now, if you guys are not aware, Komodo dragons can run faster than humans and they are extremely volatile and they do like eating meat. Yay for me. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. My heart rate at first glance of these creatures on Komodo Island was pretty up there in fear. I was very taken aback at how close we could get to them. Honestly, you guys need to YouTube this. Have you seen how fast they can run? Komodo dragons are, I will say, it's really fascinating to see them because I love seeing animals and I love being so close to wildlife. But oh my goodness, when you see how they can run and you see them attacking other living things, things on this planet, it makes you pretty apprehensive at getting close. This was a perfect example of me pushing past my comfort zone because I knew that if I really wanted to embrace being in the presence of them, which is such a gift and not something that everybody gets to do, then I really had to overcome that fear of, logically speaking, I had spoken to the guide, I'd gone through the talk already at how often do they attack visitors, blah, 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 all these questions. And you know what? I lived through it. Going back to lesson learned, over time, I've learned that allowing myself to push through my discomfort, which is another form of fear. Discomfort and fear go hand in hand. It's allowed me to live a life that is rich with experiences, opportunities, and unforgettable moments that would not exist if I'd stayed stuck in that fear. And seeing Komodo dragons in person live and actually being super close to them is one of these examples. Here's the thing. You do not grow when you're stagnant. It's impossible. You grow and expand when you're willing to move past the state you're in and blast through your fears to that other side. That's where the next level version of you exists. And you guys know I'm all about next leveling or up leveling yourselves, your lives, your relationships, your health, and your businesses. And I'm going to go back to this. You don't have to start with a life-risking situation to live more fearlessly like I did. You can start uber small. Something as simple as saying hi to a stranger, speaking up next time you have an opinion, respectfully please, or trying a new activity that's not in your normal routine. With each risk that you take over time, you'll be able to build up that confidence to a point where you'll be able to do things you once thought were impossible for you to do. If I can face my fears like being within arm's reach of that cute little Komodo dragon, then you guys can too. I would highly encourage you guys do something today, if even the smallest action that scares you, and please drop me a line to share what you guys overcame. I want you to know that we are all in this journey together to support and raise each other up and to rise higher. So let's do this. Let's live fearlessly together, guys. Now that I've shared a few stories and examples of how I've been able to blast through some of the things that were holding me back in my fear-based mindset, I want to share 3 ways that you guys can start living fearlessly today, because today is always the best time to start. Tip number 1, speak up. Say what you need to say when you need to say it. This is a huge step to take. For many years, I was plagued with times I wish I had said something, but it allowed fear to stop me. Having almost lost my father was one of my biggest life-changing events, and it really made me realize that our time on this planet is precious. Because life is so short and can be taken at any time, it's so important to let those who you care about know how you feel about them. How often do you go through your day and not once tell someone you love how much you appreciate them? It can be easy in the routine of life to go ages without speaking to a loved one, letting a friend know you're thinking of them, or revealing your feelings to someone for whom you care about. You have the power to change that today. Please, guys, let one person you're thankful for in your life know how you feel about them. All right, my tip number 2 for you to live fearlessly today. Make a list and think big. And I mean massive big. Think of one goal that you've always wanted to achieve, but you've made up many excuses to stop you. Write down the goal and, rather than focusing on the reasons why it can't be done, write down the action steps that are necessary in making it happen, regardless of how big or small it is. Once you finish, you will have a master plan to work from that's less intimidating than when you started. Now imagine yourself in a state where you are experiencing what it is that you want to accomplish and all of the steps on your list while continuing to remember that sensational feeling. I'm a huge and firm believer in visualization, and if you can truly picture yourself overcoming your fear, that will be that much closer to you actually being able to achieve that. As a firm believer that anything is possible, any goal, regardless of size, can be achieved. Taking action with a plan can alleviate some of the fear associated with making your vision come to life. And I've mentioned this throughout the episode, but seriously, guys, taking baby steps daily is my 3rd and final tip for you, because it is such a sweet and simple way to start, but it can have immense and profound profound and huge benefits for you in your life. This is the easiest way I've learned to live more fearlessly. Every day I have a goal that I will take at least one risk. It could be something as small as trying a new recipe, talking to a stranger, or taking a bigger risk such as setting off on an impromptu journey with little plans other than a mantra, don't know, just go, which I've been known to do and accustomed to doing in my life at times. It also takes time to build up to feeling comfortable with the unknown, but over time it becomes easier to say yes when you could just let the voices of excuses in your head lead you to live a life of no's. And we don't want that. We do not want a life of no's. We want a life of yeses. Living fearlessly does not mean I don't take all scenarios into account or I disregard basic logic or common sense. Hello, I am a Virgo and we live for logic. On the contrary, I've actually become more aware of the decisions I'm making and their impact. As a result, the only thing scarier to me than the fears that exist in my head is the possibility that I might allow them to stop me from living my life fully. Case in point, this week, for homework, or as I like to refer to it to y'all, your paradise paving practice, try something new every day that scares or intimidates you. The only thing stopping you is you, and you just never know what you're capable of until you allow yourself to try. As I said, I really and truly believe you're meant to fly, but unless you're willing to take a risk of falling, you will never be able to experience moving forward, growing, and progressing unless you try. So in this episode, I've told you guys a lot about the types of fears that I've overcome, a lot of tips and techniques that you guys can implement, blasting through your fears, and not just doing that, but using those fears and that scenario as fuel to then push yourself forward into taking action, whether small or massive action in your lives. Again, I just really want to share with you guys that if I can do this, you guys can do this too. Fear is something we all deal with a lot of times on a daily basis. It could be the small things that freak us out or bring anxiety into our life. And when you can really focus your energy and attention on what it is and where it's stemming from, then you can be that much closer to blasting through it. And also having that master plan I mentioned, it's a lot easier when you have a plan of action to actually produce a successful result. You know that saying, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail? I really believe that. And fear is just another thing you can plan for in your life. It's so important that we keep moving forward, that we keep moving ahead, and that we keep progressing together and rising to the occasion of lifting each other up and living and loving and learning in our highest state of being. Because together as a conscious community, we can have a more beautiful, a more abundant, and a more successful planet. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I really and truly hope from the bottom of my heart that it can help you blast through some of your fears and that you are empowered to take action in your life today. As I mentioned last time, I have something really special in the works that I have coming up for you, so stay tuned to future episodes. On that positive note, that's it for this episode. It would mean so much to me if you really adored it, to share it with others who could benefit from hearing these words too, and to subscribe and review it only if you feel called to. I love seeing your loving and caring words online. With that said, I am sending y'all so much love, light, and wishing you a fearless, fierce, and fabulous day out there, you sweet soul. Squeeze or hug, and mwah! Until next time. Thanks so much for joining me. If there's anyone you know who you think could benefit from hearing today's episode, it would mean the world if you'd share it with them. Love what you heard? Then please subscribe. If you really love what you heard, then please leave a review with your honest and loving thoughts. This podcast wouldn't be possible without your support. If you feel called to, please make contributions to my podcast fund that helps me to keep it going strong, bringing on amazing guests for you, and to continue the ripple effect of spreading goodness in the world. I appreciate you, your time, and your energy, and I love hearing from you, so drop me a line on social media. As always, I'm wishing you a positive day and your own piece of paradise. Until next time, sending you love and light, and keep shining.